There's mysterious phenomenon throughout the world. The world's turning, and the creatures of the night are roaming. You're listening to the Venomous Fringe. Let's dive into the X.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Venomous Fringe Live. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Dogman conspiracy and the cover-ups surrounding it. And tonight's episode, we want to try to touch base on the whole idea behind it, because this is one of those cases where we want to go ahead and just going back and forth and get an idea on the whole Dogman mythos in general, why it's being covered up, and in general. Hello, guys. Virginia, Ivan, first-time viewer. Hello, Ivan. Thank you for watching the stream. Hannah, hello. Welcome. Glad you guys could be here today or tonight, wherever you guys are watching this. And I want to thank you guys again for tuning into the stream. And here we go. Tonight's an interesting episode, and there's a reason why I wanted to touch base on the whole idea, the conspiracy behind Dogman, and the reason why I wanted to make this an episode to talk base with is because there is this whole idea when it comes to a Dogman cover-up, a whole Dogman conspiracy. A lot of people aren't really familiar with it, why that's the case. And this is one of the most interesting things to talk about, because I think for a lot of people out there who like these type of shows don't really know too much about the whole Dogman cover-up and why it is the way it is. And I hope tonight maybe I can get you guys a little bit of an idea on what's going on with it. Hello, everybody who's tuning into the stream right now. Very glad to have you all here. It's a little different, a little out of my element to do this on a Tuesday evening versus a Friday night, but because I have a bit of a dilemma doing my personal life, unfortunately, I just had to touch base and do a show for tonight. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for the support. I want to thank everyone who has tuned into every single one of my streams, my channel, and in general, who have just enjoyed it. I always try to be different, and that's the kind of the reason why I never, always try to keep that firm belief and always try to be different from everybody else. Thanos Snap, I chose you over WWE SmackDown. Hey, let me tell you something, man. I'm a big wrestling fan. I'm not a big fan of the current day product, but thank you. WWE SmackDown, there you go. But yes, hello, Ivan. Thank you again. First time viewer listening from North Texas. Very huge place with activity. Very huge place. Texas is probably one of the biggest areas to be covered with Dogman activity. I'm going to tell you guys right now, Dogman is all over the place. People think that they aren't in separate areas of the world. However, I will say this, because I have spoken to many people and researchers, and in general, enthusiasts, eyewitnesses, researchers, who have really touched base on this, especially researchers. Dogmen are all over the place. And North Texas is a huge area for activity, by the way. Not trying to scare you out there, Ivan, but there is some activity in North Texas. They're all over the place. So, yeah. But I want to just go ahead, before we even get started with the show, I just want to go ahead and say this. Last week I had produced an episode based on a reported encounter in Shenandoah, and I do hope I'm saying that right, in Virginia. And this was a report I had received through an email from a guy by the name of Steve, and this guy had sent me a very well detailed report. Something that really caught my attention with it was that this was a reported incident involving a Dogman and a Sasquatch. Now, I have heard a lot of encounters, or somewhat of very few encounters, of where there were people who have reported Dogmen and Sasquatch together. And I wanted to upload it because it seemed like a very interesting concept of a story, so to speak. And that's the reason why I'm going to say that the way I did, is because I'll get to this in a second. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. And I uploaded it for a specific reason for that. And I always upload something, or I always want to showcase something, because in my opinion, I feel when it comes to research, and because we can't always take a story to be fake in general, because anybody could have a very convincing story, but anybody can also make up a story. It's just how it is. Unfortunately, I had gotten the revelation a little while after that upload that this guy actually told me a fake story. He hoaxed it, and in efforts of me to post it out there to try to put in some humiliation. And unfortunately, I deleted it, and I actually, you know what, to tell you the truth, again, for me, I am somebody who does a show. I'm here to discuss Dogman and other various cryptids of that topic, even though Dogman is #1 on this channel. And I don't try to hoodwink or try to put out fabricated content. And I do apologize if some people felt that I was trying to put out a hoax content or anything like that. I mean, honestly, to tell you guys the truth, I'm at 5.5K subscribers. If I was that desperate for subscribers, I would have done a whole lot better than that story, but it was a hoax. So again, I just wanted to throw that out there. I do apologize for some people who felt that I was trying to put out a fake content. That wasn't the case. I was hoodwinked myself. So with that being said, I'm going to continue the show now. And the Dogman conspiracy. Now, Mike, you brought up a very good point, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to do this type of show, is about this story that I was looking at about a week or so ago. I think it's about maybe 2 weeks old. I could be wrong. And this was a very interesting story. This story happened, there was this child who was apparently, quote unquote, you can't see my fingers go air quoting, but I will say it in the way I do, that he was captured by a bear and it kept him safe. Now, folks, I'm going to be extremely honest with everybody here. You know, I will say this. Bears, last time I checked, bears don't necessarily protect humans. Not that I know of. Bears maul people. Bears will attack a human being if they choose to. I have a hard time believing that story, and by the time the stream ends, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post it in the link in the description down below for anybody who's interested if you've never heard that story before. But Mike I'm glad you brought up that story, Mike, because that's actually something I wanted to touch base on. Because I have a hard time believing the story. I don't think it's true. I think it's actually fake, and I don't think the story itself. I mean, there's a cover up to it. I think. I don't think this kid. And Hannah, you mentioned that apparently there's a claim that the kids made it up. And I think there's a little bit more detail being processed with this now as we speak. I don't know the extent of everything. All I know is that the kid was captured, quote unquote, by a bear. And the bear protected him, and he was found a couple days later. First of all, a 3-year-old, I don't think a 3-year-old can understand what a bear is. And in my opinion, and this is just coming from me, I mean, I could be wrong. It depends, I guess. I mean, I'm sure kids know what bears are. You're taught them in school. More importantly, parents can teach you that there are dangerous predators out there, especially if you're living living in flatlands where there's a lot of woods. And exactly my point, Mike. I don't think that a bear would go ahead and try to say, come here, kid, it's going to be quite okay. I'm going to take you by my side. We're going to get through this. This is like Yogi Bear or the Jungle Book all over again. But there is also a bit of a catch to it, which is something I want to get your guys' opinions on. If this was the incident, I do believe that this kid may have been captured. I wouldn't say the word captured. Let me change that word. I believe this kid may have had a run-in with a Sasquatch. And he, in the process, was taken under his wing. There were cases where there was I want to get you guys, anyone here remember the case of a girl that was captured or whatever was the case, taken by a wolf and was raised by wolves? And it reminds me of that case. I think it might have been a Sasquatch, though, that this kid had been an encounter with, or whatever the case may be. But it could have been a Dogman. A Dogman could have very well. But who knows? The authorities don't want to admit that, though, because, again, going back to the conspiracy, this cover-up, this whole scenario where you have all of these authority figures, high-paid politicians telling the cases that these creatures are covered up. And there's very good reason for it, especially if you think about the long run when it comes to the environmental perspective and, more importantly, when it comes to history. But, I mean, to tell the public that a kid was captured by a bear and that he was okay afterwards. First of all, I've ran into bear before. I've ran into black bear. I never want to run into a grizzly bear. And I sure as hell never want to run into a Kodiak. I mean, I like some wildlife, but I'm just throwing it out there. I don't ever think a bear would come up to you and say, and I wouldn't say, but he would approach and be like, okay, come here, kid, we're going to get you out of here. No, that doesn't make a lot of sense now, does it? And I think the story behind it is extremely covered up. There's more to the story. And if it was made up to just go ahead, I have a hard time thinking that would be made up. And I agree with what everyone's saying. I mean, again, I feel like a bear would eat the kid. Of course it would. Bears don't know what we are. If anything, they see us as another animal, another predator in their territory, just like dogmen. Dogmen see us and they're like, oh, look, a human, chase, or whatever the case may be, get you out of their territory. But a bear would eat the kid. Indeed. Don't be Timothy Treadmill. It never works out. Maria, you're 100% right. Timothy Treadwell is a great example. This was a guy who spent 12 years in Alaska trying to keep the bears nice and preserved, trying to protect the bears, and he ended up staying an extra week or so with his girlfriend on another expedition. And unfortunately, because this was around the time of when, there's hibernation and they're trying to get food and it's like mating season and whatnot, it's a big thing. He was mauled by a bear. There is apparently audio, even though I don't believe that's the actual audio, of him literally screaming, getting killed, and his girlfriend was trying to tell him to fight back, and there was a frying pan involved. And I'm not just trying to say that to be funny. I'm being straight up with this because I don't think, and again, I know I'm going off subject here, but just for the record, I mean, bears, they can maul you straight up. And I say it in that term because it's just how I am. I'm from the East, but a bear would maul you. I think the Dogman Chow type looks like a teddy bear. Bigfoot kid would probably describe as monkey or hairy man. The Chow type is a very interesting type, Hannah, because it's not really relevant versus the canine variations. This is a type 3 variant too, if you follow the chart. This is supposed to resemble the werewolf from An American Werewolf in London. It has the chow-like head. And that's the thing of it is that if that was the case, then I can understand maybe if it may have sounded like that, but I think they're trying to do a cover-up on it to say, listen, this is a kid that was apparently, quote-unquote, because this also makes it sound like bears are friendly. Does it not? That, oh yeah. Buckeye, I was referring to, well, in general, someone had mentioned this case in which a kid was apparently captured by a bear, and it's believed to be not a bear. That's the only reason why it's being brought up. And that's what it has to do with Dogman, FYI. So, yeah. In that case, I don't really think it was a bear that had taken that kid. Or in general, I don't think a bear would do such a thing. So yeah, I believe it. I agree, Mike. I think it's a cover-up. Another cover-up. And that's why the title of the video is Dogman Conspiracy. Does anyone know why I couldn't watch the Bigfoot vs. Dogman after it aired? Well, Shar, to answer your question, I had removed it because the person that had sent me that story turned out to confirm it was indeed a fake story, and it was to make up just for the sake of entertainment purposes, and to kind of put it out there, so it was a hoodwink. And I just mentioned that in the beginning of this stream. So that's why I removed it, because this is not a channel that focuses on fake stories and fabrication. This is a channel based on genuine and eyewitness accounts on top of my opinion on the field. So that's why I removed it. What makes them not think bear? Well, I mean, why would a bear take a kid in? Okay, why would a bear take this child in and perfectly take it at the case of like, okay, this is a kid, we're going to take care of him, we're going to follow him, we're going to show him our culture. I'm not trying to say this to be funny, okay? I know it make it sound like it's kind of funny, but it's really not, because again, this is the same BS we're being fed left and right when it comes to this discussion of creatures. But I don't think a bear would do that. It may have been a Dogman, it could have been a Sasquatch. The kid would have been dinner. Indeed, Angel, indeed. And these creatures are getting closer, Mike. I mean, look at the environments. We're tearing down more and more forest, and these creatures are having a difficult time trying to migrate and trying to cross over when we have more Not metropolitan areas, but more small town areas, more environments where their environments are being more and more teared. So in general, though, I mean, that's something to me that, yes, they are getting very close, indeed. Bears aren't that vicious. Why would animals save kids at zoos who fall into these cages? Look it up and you'll see why this is nonsense. Well, Buckeye, it's pretty clear that you sound to be a very big skeptical individual, and I do apologize if you don't really appreciate the discussion, but I think me and a few others could explain that a little bit more firm with you if you want me to. The famous picture taken out of the back window of a vehicle. What type of Dogman is that? Very bear-looking. You know, Hannah, that's the infamous on-away photograph that was taken circa 2004 in Michigan. This was a very interesting photograph, and it's also, I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of the more interesting photographs taken of a supposed Dogman. Some people believe that it is not a Dogman, it could be a puppet. Some others believe that it was someone, I guess, thought a long time ago that it was some sort of Black Panther. But in my honest opinion, I haven't heard anything about panthers in Michigan, not that I know of. But the thing is that with the on-away photograph, I mean, that does look like a bear. It does. I see what you're saying. I think it's a canine variant, but because that has very little information to it, I'm not 100% sure. It's a very good photograph, though. I actually saw the video of the grandparents' house where the kid was staying and everything was overgrown and messy. Interesting. I mean, again, it's still a very interesting case. It could be very much so covered up, and that's the reason why I wanted to touch base on the conspiracy of why these creatures are covered up, why the authorities make it, in general. I mean, let's be fair here. The thing is that when it comes to discussions and in general with just the discussion of Dogman, one of the things that really fascinate me is that there are so many people out there of where people will have these encounters or there's something major that public sees and it'll be covered up. This is done so much in Dogman and Sasquatch cases. I mean, let's take a look at this. You got two of the hot topics in the cryptid field. You have Dogman and Sasquatch. Why would the authorities go as far as to cover this up? What would be the motive? What would be the purpose behind it? Squatch approaches the child on fours and has a slight protruding facial features. A female Squatch hears him crying and looks after him, then helps him return to relative proximity to where the humans are. Now, that's interesting because some people say, is there a difference between male and female Sasquatches and Dogmen? I always feel the females are more motherly, have the motherly instincts, more motherly, more kind-hearted. And, of course, I think a Dogman, the same thing with a Dogman female. But let's be fair here. If you put a female Dogman in, if there's a cub around or a pup, and there's someone near that might possibly hurt him, then yeah, that would be a very big situation right there. It's like a bear cub, for example. Vengeful. I think that's the pick that was taken in Canada. The Canadian pick was actually the Beast of Seven Shoots. And the Beast of Seven Shoots is a very interesting photograph. Didn't Jody Cook mention something about the police code word for Dogman is black dog, and for Bigfoot it is black cow, or along those lines. I don't recall him ever saying that. I mean, he may have done another interview with another show that had described that, but it was certainly not on my show. He did talk about a case, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. If you guys even want to listen to the case, go right ahead. There was this case that occurred, I think it was episode 2 or 3 of my 10 Tales show, where he discussed an incident that happened in PA involving someone, that there was this bear that got hit by a car, quote unquote, and he apparently mentioned in this story that the authorities came in, covered up within half an hour, and it wasn't a bear apparently. This wasn't a legitimate bear, this was apparently something else. I don't know how accurate that story is, and even Jody, I think, doesn't even know how accurate that story is because he just received the story and he just told it for my show. Who knows for sure if it's real or not, or if someone was messing with him. There's always those people that will do that. I mean, that's typical of our genre, our society, and in general. But the thing with me when it comes to cover-ups with this stuff is I can understand why there's a cover-up. And Mike brings up a good point that they don't want people to hunt them. Plus, if they came out and said these creatures are real, the parks and recreation area would have to go bankrupt in no time. Indeed. Indeed. And that's a big reason, too. Hello, Vinicius. I hope I said your name right. Greetings from Brazil. Thank you for tuning into the show. It's always great to have folks internationally tune into the show besides the U.S. And thank you to all who tune in. Hey, weren't I on the BDRP live stream chat last? Of course, yes, I was. That was me. And that's another thing, too, I want to throw out there. Someone had mentioned to me, someone sent me a message saying, oh, why do you go on these? Are you on some of these shows to get your, promote your show? No, I'm not. I think these are funny claims because, honestly, DDoS is one of my friends. He's a very good researcher, and I admire his work, him and the rest of the BDRP. And I go on his streams to listen to what data he has to present to the crowd. And that, to me, is what I like to do. I like to listen to other streamers, other people who are researchers, and listen to their shows and see what they have to say. I listen to Vic's show still, even though I don't really think some of the cases that are produced on some stories that are being told are genuine. I'm not going to go into a dialect about that because I could save that for another day. But again, I want to throw this out there. I don't believe every story that's presented to the table because there are some red flags. There are some black holes that I feel are very, don't make a lot of sense. And whether you see it on Vic's show or D's show or in general any other YouTuber show like Dark Waters or whatever, there is some interesting content that's produced, but I mean, not everything could be genuine. Thank you, Mike, for the kind words. I really do appreciate, like I said, the support, guys. You know, it's always great to listen to the fans' feedback and everyone who tunes into the show. I wouldn't be doing these shows if it wasn't for you guys, the subscribers, because you guys are the reason why these shows still continue. So thank you for the kind words. But I want to talk a little bit about the cover-up stuff. The incident with a lot of the chaos, and you're right about, and everyone who's posting about the cover-up stuff, you're all hitting the nail on the head with it. Because the thing is that when you talk about a cover-up with Dogman, especially Dogman, Sasquatch, it's already universal because people know what Sasquatch is. But Dogman covered up, it's very interesting because I think there's more of a connection basis here with the fact of keeping the parks from going AWOL, I guess you could say. A Jar of Pickles, I know you mentioned, have you heard of random staircases showing up in the woods? No, I have not, actually. That's pretty interesting. I'll have to look into that. I wanted to answer your question because I know you posted before. But going back to what I was saying, everyone who's talking about how the government would lose billions in the revenue of the national parks and everything in general, of course, you're 100% right. Accuracy is key on that. And that's the crazy part, too, because you have these incidents where they're going to be covered up. And if the park rangers or people were to say, listen, you got to be careful. There's a giant 8-foot creature out there running on bipedal and running around. I mean, that would tell you that right then and there that if there's a family that is actually walking around and going camping, it would be very terrifying for them. And they would be like, nope, I'm not going to go there. I am not going to stand for it. I'm going to not go to this park, and I'm done with it. So, yeah. That's something to me when it comes to a cover-up, why they would kind of go forth with it, because, you know, you got these creatures out there that are in the woods for a permanent reason. I mean, this is their home. You don't see Dogmen walking into metropolitan areas. I mean, if that was the case, we all remember the ending to American Werewolf in London when the werewolf went rampant in Piccadilly Circus. That would be the same chain reaction people would be getting. And that's the same chain reaction people would get even in the woods in national parks. To me, that would be the case scenario there where to tell the public about these things, there's only 2 ways I feel the public would have to know about these creatures. Does it take, and I'm not saying this for some people, and this is not to be in a political stance, this is to be on the exact pressure of what we are doing here as researchers. If the president was to be mauled by a Dogman, would the government cover it up? Maybe. But, I mean, let's be fair here. I mean, there's always going to be a case with someone having some sort of rabid encounter, but at the same time, if it took that, or if it was the case that someone like a government official who would have to go into a lot of surveillance and go into a lot of hiding, like Snowden, I would feel that it would be much so to explain. It would have to be huge, an explanation to really tell the public. They are different types of demons that's been walking on its earth. Top, can you explain to me how they are demons? I mean, I'm not discrediting your opinion. I just want to understand why. I want to know if there's proof, if there's evidence that proves that they are demons. I would like to know. Why would they allow people to put themselves in danger? Well, again, I mean, the woods, first of all, when you're in national parks or when you're in the woods, I mean, it's all about survival. Survivor Man, a great example. And really in the woods, you want to hit there and you want to do what you got to do. You want to sit there, you're away from society, civilization. But you're also in wild animal territory. That is something that, to me, it's like you go into the woods, you're built on survival. You're described to be on survival. So park rangers might be there, but not all the time park rangers are going to be there to watch your back. I always go into the woods, no matter what. Hunting knife, a gun if you have the permits for it. But in general, you should never go into the woods unarmed. I don't encourage people to go and kill dogmen. I just say, in general, you never want to go into the woods alone. Because you may not even encounter a dogman. You can even encounter a bear or a mountain lion. But that's the type of thing that really stands out to me. Of course, why would they allow people to put themselves in danger? I mean, first of all, if you go into the woods unarmed, you're putting yourself in danger immediately. Because, as I said, you never want to put yourself in a position where you can defend yourself and you don't have the supplies for it. Here's a question for you. Say that there are two groups of dogmen. One group wants to kill and enslave humans while the other wants to save humans in battle. What is your opinion? It's interesting because if you follow the religious beliefs of these creatures, that they might be the creatures of the abyss coming from the end of times to come out here and try to, put an end to civilization, humanity as we speak. First of all, I think there might be a few. There's always going to be a dogman with a different personality, and what I mean by that is that I always believe that there's always going to have a dogman. It's like humans. Some humans are just bitter. Some humans are happy all the time. Dogmen are very bitter, but they're also animals that are in the wild. I always try to stick to the flesh and blood aspect for two reasons. Number one, we have a very strong understanding here that they can bleed. We have a very strong understanding that there is living proof. There's also, I feel if it was unnatural, it wouldn't keep it in its tracks. If we've seen footprints, if we've heard the stories of how they act, then to me, I always stick to them being in a flesh and blood state. Does that mean that they aren't interdimensional or supernatural? I wouldn't classify them as that. And I've said this multiple times. That's just my opinion. Everyone has difference of opinion. But in my opinion, I just think that these are flesh and blood animals. But at the same time, number two being is that if this was a supernatural creature, I feel it would do what it takes to wipe out humanity in general. That's just my opinion, though. But there are people that will say that they are evil. And that's no question, but you can also say the same thing for bears, mountain lions, tigers. They could be evil as well. Even Sasquatch, you could say the same thing for them. So, I mean, think about it. But yeah, what kind of power do you think a person might... I just had to go scroll up real quick. What kind of power do you think a person might have if they had an alliance with these creatures? Oh, Jesus. That's actually a really good question right there. And that's something I've always thought about. What if someone had the beauty and the honor of being one of a dogman? Having the ability to go into their culture just like that? Having to sit there and learn from them and get an idea on what they are? That's a very interesting question. But if that were the case, though, if that was the case, Jericho, the accomplishment, I don't think ever, and this is something to me, I feel a dogman would have to put a lot of trust into somebody, I feel, in my opinion. encourage no one to go out there and try to be like the grizzly man and try to be the dogman man or the dogman woman who wants to go out there and have a communication with them, because we don't know what they're thinking. They're smarter than us, okay? I'll put it to you like that. They are more intelligent than us, and they have more capability of taking us out versus a human being. But however, I'm going to say something that David Kyleman always said. He would put trust in a dogman first before a human being, and he could be very right with that. Right, I know. I was literally Meshach Miles' comment is pretty interesting because I always compare them to great whites. I feel dogmen are the great whites. Indeed, I do agree with that. Robert goes, do you think that they have been weaponized? Well, Robert, there is a case in which there was someone who, I think in South America, had seen these dogmen carry these weapons and armor, very much like Predator. Jody Cook told the case. He's notorious for that story as well. I think Linda Godfrey's also talked about it too. But at the same time, that would be something there that I would have to dig into a little bit too much on, because again, now we have, if this was the case, why aren't dogmen making these crafting these weapons in the forest and chasing us with them? What would be the purpose of that, you know? That's something that I've always thought about, I guess. A friend told me about an individual who did have a close enough encounter that they shot at and hit it, it flinched and it took off and they left the area. I mean, to tell you the truth, if that's indeed the case, Marie, then that makes me feel that this dogman may have been alone, may have been scared, and perhaps maybe wasn't just really interested in dealing with these people. Maybe they were terrified. Maybe there is a fear factor to them. They are afraid of us when it comes to an extent. But I don't think all of them are vicious, violent demons that some people make them out to be, because if that was the case, why aren't we wiped out as we speak? Why aren't these creatures coming like Planet of the Apes, coming into our areas and just breaking down our doors and just killing us? Why would that? Well, that would, in my opinion, I feel that would be a big demon issue right there. Doesn't necessarily have to be implied as that of a demon, but still. Okay, Jericho, I see what you're talking about. I am thinking real world, what if their goals are the same power? That's your cover-up. Maybe. Who knows? Again, it's a conspiracy when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like Jesse Ventura, but I'm just trying to say in the lines of what we did research here, it does stand out to that being. I think that they are inquisitive like any other animal. That is true as well. There is a report of how these creatures do look at us and stare at us and are curious of us, but I don't think they would go as far as to try and do things that would take us at a measuring instinct, by the way. To me, I feel that if these creatures had the capabilities that were able to wipe out people and do the things, I feel they would have done that by now. That's why I don't think that these creatures are that much of a demon, but I feel more along the lines that it would be much of something that would stand out. That would be very strong and capable that, yes, we'd have to reveal to the public that these are monsters that exist. Could it be a lichen? Well, I feel that lycanthropes and dogmen are two different creatures, because a werewolf we're used to hearing is having supernatural abilities, and I always stick to that belief. I could be wrong in that belief, but in my opinion, I always felt that these are not werewolves, and if they were, they would have a more supernatural presence to them. You could shoot at a dogman. They bleed. I felt if it was a supernatural creature, it would bleed, but it would heal quickly. You would see it patch itself up through the act of a supernatural ability. If dogmen wanted us dead, we would be there. There's nothing we can do if they wanted to break down our door at night. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. If they wanted us dead, we would be there'd be nothing. We'd be gone. Nothing that would keep us moving, because they would have that ability. A dogman estimation could be around 400 to 600 pounds with a height of 8 feet to 9 feet tall. I think anything after 11 feet is exaggerated, in my opinion. And I apologize for some who feel different about that, but in my opinion, I feel that if these were creatures that were, I guess you could say, very much stronger than Superman or anything in general. Bodybuilders are not even stronger than these creatures. They wouldn't last a chance. We would be killed instantly. In reports of encounters, Dogman seldom enter homes. They don't break glass windows or come through window screens. They stare at windows, though. That's one thing I will say. They do enter homes. They're able to open up doors, but that makes even a more scarier effect to it, because this creature can easily just open my door. And it could even come into my house and stare at me while I sleep. I wouldn't know because I'd be asleep. The Overbuilt Automotive said... Oh, Dave Wavery is on a case in Pennsylvania. He thinks it's a werewolf or a relic. Do you think it's a Dogman if you've heard of the case? What is the case about that, Mike? I would like to hear more about that. I know it kind of sounds a little ridiculous that I'm a researcher. I don't really catch up to date, but there's so many researchers out there. I just don't listen. I don't keep up and listen to every single story that they that are being posted out there. The Navajo Zuni Indian stories of what they are and how folks become one is very dark. We are protected from the attacks from demons. They called gods. Restrainer of the unseen realm is actively helping us. That could be true. I'm not really big on the religious aspect of them, but, I mean, it is something to also think about. What do you all think about the Dogmen that Jody Cook heard about when they said there'd be an alien race? They wear armor and carry a sword. I was just talking about that, actually. To answer your question, Shar, I think that's an interesting case, an interesting story. However, I just have a hard time kind of sticking with it because of the fact being that it could take a Dogman very easily to obtain an axe from somebody or something in a shed or a garage they can break into, or in general they can craft something, a spear maybe, or whatever the case may be. They could do the same thing here if they wanted to. What about the land between the lakes, Dogman or Bigfoot? I might get you guys, if you guys have questions, I might actually touch bases because I'm going to get into the land between the lakes for a little bit. Wyona, that's a very interesting question because Land Between the Lakes is probably one of my favorite cases involving the related story of Dogman. Because of a few reasons. One, this is a very popular case. The Land Between the Lakes tells a story of a Dogman, or what appeared to have been a Dogman, killing this family. And this family, unfortunately, there was a big cover-up with it. The authorities arrived. And the two responding officers were shunned. They were told that there was a lot of cover-up. There was a huge thing with it, a big diabolical with it, and apparently this creature was killed soon afterwards. The only way that this story was brought to public domain was because of Jan Thompson, and the story went from there. Jan Thompson said something, and then, of course, Barton Nunnally, very good illustrator and researcher, by the way, folks. He has one of the best sketches, I think, ever of a Dogman. So, that's a very interesting case, but I am skeptical of it for a few reasons. Number one, the fact of it being covered up, and number two, the sake being that there is so many different variations of the story. There's a couple things that are a little different versus the original report from Jan Thompson. The original report from Jan Thompson that was retrieved from Barton and put on Phantoms and Monsters is on the Phantoms and Monsters blog. If you guys want to check it out, just look up LBL and look for the link of the Phantoms and Monsters. And that's the original story. There are some differences in the story in recent years. Some say that now this creature, there was more to it, that there was two creatures, that there was military operatives there. National Guard was called in. The park was covered and closed down for the day. There's so many different variations of the story, and to me, I feel it might even be an urban legend at this point. But LBL is a very haunted attraction, number one. It's not just Dogmen. There's cases involving the Hotel California, which was at one point supposed to be a vampire hotel. These people who were vampires reportedly would hide in this area. It also has a history with Native Americans. The original story of the LBL case told the story of how the origins of the so-called beast, of a shaman who used his powers for evil. And he was killed by a tribe, and he cursed the land, very similar to Chief Cornstalk and the Mothman in West Virginia. And that this creature is this shaman who does not like people in general. So the Land Between the Lakes story is a pretty interesting case, but I will say this. I mean, if that is the case, I wouldn't call it a Dogman. I would feel it would be more demonic. It would be something like that of a werewolf, or maybe even a skinwalker. But again, I wasn't there, as well as all of us weren't, so I can't really say that for sure. Stacy goes, I'm sure the government has video and pictures that would blow our minds on this animal. I wish people who research them would show some of their good stuff too. Well, that's something I've really looked into. I know Dee goes out into the field and does this research, as well as Jody. I would like to understand and also get an idea why we aren't seeing any evidence that is relevant. Scott Carpenter and Kirk Stokes have pretty good evidence. And on top of that, whatever we've seen in our history with Dogman in the last 32 years of it being publicly discussed when it comes to the folks who are cryptid enthusiasts like ourselves. But at the same time, I feel that in those cases, again, it's a cover-up. There is definitely clear evidence out there. It's the fact being that it's not being posted, which is a disappointment in my opinion. Do you think that they might have current or long-standing historical contact not to kill humans? Well, now that's opening up a parallel with the good, bad, and ugly. There's the good dogman, there's the bad dogman, and then there's the ones that are just straight out just don't care. And there are some that might look at us and say, okay, another human being, let's just carry on. And then there's also some that might think, okay, well, this is another human being that clearly is in my territory, and I'm pissed about it, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chase this creature out of my territory. Notice how I called the human a creature, because to them, they probably see us as a human, as we see us as human, but they probably think we're not. They probably think in their own brains that we're a creature of our own. We are, in a way, a creature. We're mammals, so, I mean, there's somewhat to that. There's some instance to that. But, again, that's just something, in my opinion, that really stands out to me, I guess you could say. I feel the lichens are more evolved hybrids. Werewolves are less heard of or seen maybe dying out, which would make sense, or perhaps I have no need to be out and about much. Well, again, I mean, I feel with lichens and werewolves that we're entering more into a supernatural discussion, and I feel in that case, if that were the providence of that they would probably have a more supernatural capability and more of an advantage towards humanity. But Maria, you might have a good point, though. I just want to respond to your question with that as best as possible. I've heard dogmen running down cars doing 50 miles per hour. Why would they knock on a window and not just break in? Well, I mean, again, when you go by their instincts, maybe they're not trying to give us the hints of fright and fear. They're definitely giving us the fear vibes. They want us to be afraid of them. As tough as it might be for some people out there to believe this, I always encourage people not to show fear, because if you show fear, you're becoming prey. And when you become prey, well, the rest is history. So, chasing cars 50 miles per hour, very similar to the Mothman. I mean, 50 miles per hour, I feel maybe a bear can run 25 miles per hour, from what the records state, unless I've been told fabricated notes. I don't think, if that case, maybe 30 miles per hour might be a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, but they do chase down cars. They're very notorious for that. Blazing Toric goes, would they be related to Cynocephalus? I hope I said that completely wrong. I do apologize for that. Cynocephalus, or whatever that case may be. Perhaps. I've never looked into that, actually. I would like to. You got me a new topic to take some notes on, by the way, Blazing, so I'll definitely look into that. If they were, though, again, I feel that there would be more of a supernatural connection to them, which would make me go back to them thinking they're werewolves. I think I may have heard one once, never seen anything, but it was 3 consecutive nights at almost perfectly the same time each night. Way of balance, by any chance, where is your residence at? I can hook you up with a nice map and a location spree of where these creatures might be inhabiting at. Let me know if you're interested. Are dogmen known to shake branches and make noise to scare people off, or is that more Bigfoot behavior? Casually, that's actually, I know Bigfoots are very more notorious with mimicking and banging on trees. I think dogmen just make more vocalizations, but at the same time, I've never really touched base on cases where they've done that. it's probably more of that of Sasquatch behavior. Have you heard about the military guy and saw the one-winged creature with a clown-looking face in the woods? I have not, and that sounds extremely terrifying, by the way, Miles. Do you have a story about that? Do you have a link to that or a source where I can actually view that? Because that's pretty interesting. I mean, first of all, I don't have that phobia of clowns, but I know there was a big thing with clowns a few years ago. And, yeah. If that were the case, then maybe there is a shapeshifter or a skinwalker involved with that. I think the government is making these things for war, and they let them loose to see what they can do. Well, my last stream, I touched base on Plum Island. Plum Island being this reported secret base where there is supposedly animal experimentation. And there was a case 11 years ago of the creature known as the Montauk Monster who washed up ashore in New York, a New York shore, and believed to be a Plum Island creature. And if these creatures are being experimented on and being captured, one thing I forgot to mention about LBL is that there's these bunkers. And could these be little hideouts for creatures like dogmen or werewolves or whatever the case, whatever you want to call them? Well, let's be fair here. Again, dogmen, werewolves, shapeshifter, skinwalker, wendigo. I mean, those are like a few different categories of animal right there. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Could they be experimented on? Could they be tested to be ready for war? I believe that they could be a super soldier. I have a belief that the fathead soldier, the rogue or the soldier type, the canine variant 4, whatever you want to classify it as, had instances. A genetically modified dogman that has the ability to go ahead and wipe out humanity, maybe? Who knows? To take out enemies in the military? Well, what happens when you release it to the public and there's all out like chaos? You can't stop the creature. It could wipe out civilization. Could it go into hiding? Absolutely. Good evening, Yvette. Thank you for watching the stream as always. That is a very nice howl, isn't it, Turkey? That's a very good howl. I actually got that howl off of a royalty free. The second howl was coming outside for a second. That howl, actually, I will tell you this. That made me jump, actually, too, because I forgot that I had that howl as my notification for a subscriber. So, it freaked me out as well. I am skeptical of Land Between a Lake story because the part where the blood lands on the cop's hat is out of a movie. And Jordan, you brought up that incident too, and that's something that's another thing too with that case, is that I feel that could be more of an urban legend. I could be wrong. And the other reason why I'm aiming towards urban legend is because of the fact that you have a case here where apparently a family was mutilated and killed. A little girl was found torn to shreds on top of a tree where the blood was dripping off, which Jordan mentioned. And to me, I feel that if that were the case, where's this family's other family at? Why haven't they said anything? Why wasn't this posted in records that this family was looking for this other family members? What happened to them? Were they notified it was a bear? Just like the Bowman. Kumbo tells a story best with the Bowman. And that's a case I could save for another day, but again, it could be out of a movie. And it does sound like it's out of a movie. My apologies. But again, who knows for sure? There's always a yes and no, a dividend, a pro and a con to these things. But I do think that if LBL is indeed a cover-up, and if the story is true, it's got me on the horizon with it. I'm fooled by it there and there. But that's about it. I mean, again, I could be wrong about LBL. But again, I could also be wrong about a lot of things. Overbuilt goes to think that there are a family of them, too, not just the Indian shapeshifters kind of narrative. Everything is complicated, not black and white. Hello, Ethan. Welcome to the stream. No problem, Ethan. Thank you for tuning in as always. Thank you as always for listening in and tuning in to the Venomous Fringe. You live near a forest in the UK. What forest exactly, Vengeful? I'm curious. Maybe there might be some activity. Maybe I can look up the records and see if we got some activity in your area. There is a case I am covering in the UK, in South Yorkshire, which I want to talk about pretty soon, but I will reveal more of that as the time goes on and go from there. It's a very interesting case, though. This lady's had activity for the last year, and I've been helping her get through it, and I'm looking forward to it. So let's see. Mark, you're not invisible. I'm listening to what you're posting. It's just the fact that I got a lot of questions I'm responding to. So don't take it to offense, bud. My friend, who is a paranormal investigator, is planning on doing a documentary on LBL this summer. He is going to investigate all the places and stories. I would love to hear more about that, Maria. If you would like to give me an email at thevenomousfringe@gmail.com, it's in the description of our live stream here. I'd love to find out more information on this documentary. I'm very interested to hear about that. Let's see. What else do we have here? Researchers with very good at evidence most likely was told to keep a lid on it. Most likely, Mike. There's always a case with that. Dogmen have been around for thousands of years and they are nothing like Sasquatch. That is very true. They are two different cryptids. They might have similar attributes, but they are two different creatures. From Kentucky, here, never been to LBL. No, the eastern part, though, we do have Dogman and Bigfoot. Indeed. These things come here through portals. Seen it on night across the street from my house. Well, see, I could believe that and I don't. I'm not calling you a liar, unknown, but I'm just saying that when it comes to the supernatural aspect of them, I would have to see proof if they come through portals. Dogbed do play. I wouldn't advise no one. I mean, it would be very ballsy, in my opinion, if someone got a tennis ball and felt it was appropriate to play fetch with a dogman. It'd be hilarious to watch, but I'd be scared at the same time. Do you think movie makers can make a horror film about dogmen, not werewolves, just dogmen? They made 2 independent films, though not good, just okay. Any ideas for a dogman film? Well, you know, Hollywood is very corrupt. I'm going to say it as is. Hollywood is not creative as it once was, and Hollywood would make great cash, but they would only do a Dogman film if people were getting slaughtered, if there was sex, if there was a lot of violence. That's how they make movies in the horror genre nowadays. It doesn't have to necessarily be sex, but still, I mean, again, maybe the Dogmen are like, I do agree though, Ethan. I mean, I do think there could be a Dogman movie. However, but who knows? Who knows for sure? I would love to see a Dogman movie that is like the Mothman Prophecies, where it's not a victim being taken, but stories of encounters and just fright. Maybe, too, Dogmen are confused that we look like Bigfoot in a way, but a lot smaller and wearing cloths. That's why they don't not attack. Think about bears and wolves. To be extremely fair, I mean, I kind of see them being like, I don't know, like when they see us, they're probably like, oh my god, another intruder. To be fair, I think they probably feel that way. I mean, that's like some stranger coming on your property just looking around. You're on your property and you got a stranger there. It's like WTF. They probably feel the same way when we're in their territory. I never encourage nobody to go out there and try to provoke one. Always back away slowly. Do not look at them with eye contact. Just back away slowly, show no fear, and do not look at them. Make it stand out that you're not there for their harm. You're not there to harm them. You're there to simply for whatever reason. I've heard that they tried opening doors or fumbling with trying to use the doorknobs. I would think that this would be a bit difficult for them to do. Would you agree? I mean, like a Sasquatch, they do have paws. They do have, I mean, I feel that their paws are not like dog paws, but more along the lines of that of having a mixture of a hand and a paw, like a claw. Paws and claws, so to speak. Vic has mentioned it as well. There are reports of them coming out, touching doorknobs, touching car doors. There was a case with Danielle Stedman, episode 83 of Dogman Encounters, in which she had mentioned that there was a dogman that tried to get into this car that her and her friend were in. So, they do fumble around. It might be difficult for them, but I'm sure they can do it. The alien race were said to carry an ordnance, uncommon sword. It was one piece of info Jody didn't release, so when he heard from the Marine in Afghanistan that he said the same sword, it gave credibility. I'm assuming that's what you meant. Sure, most likely. But again, those are cases where if no one else is coming forward saying that they've seen Dogman with swords and knives and stuff like that, I have a hard time getting into that groove because, again, who knows? This guy could be telling a story just to fool us all. I would have to... What would convince me otherwise if this guy came back with a weapon that was used? Or, more importantly, there's photographic evidence or there's a file dossier in our government that's classified that someone can reveal that would say that this indeed happened and that this is it. Who knows for sure? Who knows if that guy even told Jody Cook for the sake being just for the fun of it, just to get people going. You know what I'm saying? For everyone tuning in right now who's commenting, just so you know, I'm going down the chat, so I'm going one by one. And if you have posted a question, I'm going to get to you guys. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to go ahead and answer every question. They have glowing yellow eyes, very muscular dog legs. They don't back down from humans. People have that feeling that if they do not leave, it's going to end bad. They won't lift guns. He was on spaced out radio. Yeah, that's, something that I've looked into as well. If a dogman is able to operate a gun, I would just accept my fate and say screw it. Because at that point, I have no chance at survival. Same thing with a Sasquatch. Okay, like, if a Sasquatch cocked a shotgun, and you're looking at it, you are screwed. Accept it, and that's it. I would be scared to death if that ever happened to me. I really would. Government will never admit to Dogman existing. It's all about the money. You're exactly right, too, Mike. Another good point. Money, money, money. It's all about the money. The money. For all you Red Dead fans out there, money. These things are much smarter than anyone is giving them credit for. Much smarter. You are 100% right, Jericho13. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say you're 100% right. You're actually 120% right. They have laws in politics. They have a law about attacking us in our houses. They think they can run the show. I mean, if that were the case, then I'm surprised all these eyewitnesses who have had the encounters are still alive to tell the tale. I think the Montauk monster was just a rotten pit bull. It does look like a bit of a pit bull, Jordan. I will agree with that. But if it were the case, then why did it look so mutated? If it had a disease, maybe. But what kind of disease would a dog get to look that mutated? Jar Pickles goes, unless the government has been experimenting on these things for 2K years, I don't see it happening. These things have been around longer than we are going off cave painting. They have. There's caves, and there's symbols on those caves, in the caves, of giant creatures that look exactly like werewolves, exactly like ape men. Who would know for sure? Who would know for sure? Besides the financial aspect, maybe it's better that we don't know the real truth. We all might be too horrified to even step foot in the woods again. Honestly, I'm someone who has seen bear. I have never encountered a mountain lion, and I certainly do not want to be in the same environment with the woods of that of wild chimps. If anybody has seen the cases in Africa of the gorillas and chimps, how they just tear apart things, even kill their own. I would never want to be in the woods. But if you could run into a bear, you could run into dogmen, remember, these creatures, there's a fear factor to them. But to be in the woods, I think we are already horrified, too much already, of what these things are and how they operate. I have also read that they have seen dogmen fighting with one another and one killed the other. Maybe question if they were from the same group or two different ones. What was that case, Maria? I'd love to hear more about that. Because dogmen and Sasquatch, they do kill each other. This dogman can kill Sasquatch, Sasquatch can kill Sasquatch, dogman can kill dogman. It works both ways. They kill their own. It may not be proven, but there's no surprise. Do you think an elder dogman is going to put up with the behavior of a teenage dogman that's a rogue and it just doesn't care? If the elder dogman has its own clan, and they see a threat, might be one of their own, just like a human being would be one of our own, but again, it's still a very terrifying scenario. So that what it was that night, I thought so, but that does not explain the deer remains in the backyard that shows up periodically. Well, deer remains, in all fairness, that's something to me that, in my opinion, that's very common with dogmen. Dogmen are very popular with, I guess, ripping apart deer. I feel a Sasquatch will just snap the neck of its prey, while as a dogman will just rip into it like it's never eaten before, and will leave a very terrifying trace too, by the way. So I in my opinion, though, I do feel that if that were the case, I mean, still. But yeah, if deers are showing up in your backyard periodically, I mean, I would love to see some photographs, and maybe we get an idea of the history of the location and whatnot. LBL Brother Michael Land Between the Lakes says casually just explains bottom but down below, along with Maria and probably some other people who responded to your question. I live near the moors. Oh, this is setting up perfectly for American Werewolf in London. I live near the moors. It's a massive marshland. No one lives there. There are rumors of the beast, which people think are big cats, but mostly say it's a werewolf. Now, Vengeful, I'm not saying that in a funny way when I said the moors of American Werewolf in London. Great movie, by the way. I say that in the manner of, well, if that's the case, I would love to find out more. Where is it? What moors are we talking here? Are we talking European? Well, the European moors, but where at? In Wales? The scariest dogman trait is that they try to knock moving cars on the road. Well, I mean, yeah, there could be a case. There could be a case of that. Jar of Pickles, you want to get into the film industry, eh? Very interesting. I always wanted to make movies. However, I feel that with the way Hollywood is today, they would probably reject things. It's hard to get into the film business, by the way. What is the difference between werewolves and dogmen? Well, hello, Thin Blue Line, by the way. I listened to your report, by the way, Thin Blue Line. Very interesting encounter. Very interesting. Bo-Ra Chowins. What is the difference between werewolves and dogmen? Well, werewolves and dogmen, I always believe werewolves are more supernatural, more of a vicious type, where the person is more of think of it this way. I lost you, probably most likely. Werewolves are more supernatural, in my opinion. They have more supernatural abilities, more violence to them, more of an instinct to them, whereas dogmen are more of the flesh and blood, more of... I don't think a werewolf could bleed or be killed with regular bullets if you follow the infamous silver bullet theory, whereas a dogman can be killed with anything. So, absolutely. That's, to my opinion, I feel that those are the two differences, though some can disagree. Dogman likes to torment people. I think that's why people think they are evil. Sasquatch don't seem to do that. I know that there are cases where Sasquatch will see you, and they'll just run away. Whereas dogmen, they'll look at you and be like, oh, well, time to chase the human again. But I could be wrong, too. I could be very wrong. But dogmen do like to chase people. I mean, if you look at it like a regular canine instinct in our domesticated dogs, when there's a stranger at the door, they'll pop up and be like, ooh, hello, and try to kill you. But who knows? Some dogs are curious, some dogs aren't. Dogmen are the same way, in my opinion. They do have high tech, they do use it, but they do disdain it. Their culture worships nature and natural strength. If they do have high tech and use it, I would like to see evidence of that. But that doesn't mean that they can't use it, because I'm convinced that they can actually operate that kind of technology if there was, of course, a verification on that. What's your thoughts on carrying a 45 ACP extreme penetration ammo for defense against these creatures as a last resort? Well, Vic Cundiff has always said something very interesting to me, and even to so many too, about how you could get the most highest graded weapon in the military and it wouldn't still pierce a dogman. It could probably penetrate it, probably injure it, but would it be able to kill it? Probably not. As a last resort, I think injuring it would be the best way to get out of there, versus, an actual risk with that, of course. I plan on doing deep woods exploration with my pet wolf. Any tips on not just getting killed? Dying isn't exactly all that high on my to-do list. Well, Jar, I want to ask you this. If you have a pet domesticated wolf, your wolf would probably pick up on if there's threats in the woods. This is very similar to how dogs start to whimper and start to get a little terrified when there's also threats in the woods as well. So, in my opinion, to answer your question properly, I would feel that if that were the case, then I would definitely go there not unarmed, but I would go armed, but also if your pet wolf is along with you, by all means, pick up on the signals. If it starts to get terrified or if it starts to growl, those are signs you want to look out for when it comes to these creatures, if you know they're near. If you want to send me a message at venomousfringe@gmail.com, I can also explain a couple other things that could be beneficial for your exploration or expedition into deep woods. I wish you the best of luck with that, too, by the way. What actually happens when you make eye contact with a dogman? Well, it's the same reasoning, Mr. Chase, with the same way you would want to not make eye contact with a gorilla. It could be seen as a challenge. It could be seen as a threat. We're already threats to them. But yeah, what height have you heard of a dogman can reach? I think the tallest height, you just answered it properly, Ethan, is 10 feet. Who wins in the Battle Royale, Dogman Pack or a Bigfoot clan? Well, I don't know. They're two strong cryptids, so I think it would have to matter on strength, ability, and whatever one each could be that. So, if there are young Squatches against young Dogmen, that's a very tough battle because they have strength and ability. An elderly tribe, most likely, depends. I don't want to be there for that because I could very well become their dinner afterwards. But it's something interesting to think about. What are your thoughts on Dogman and pareidolia? Well, pareidolia, of course, is the infamous term in which people who claim to see Dogmen are not really there and they think they see them in these bushes and trees and stuff like that. I don't really think of too much of it. I don't really buy into it, for the sake being that there's just too much of a small conspiracy behind it. I don't think that it's possible for them to do such a thing like that. To take a photo and say, oh, there's a dogman, when it's really just a tree or a stump. I've called people out on that too, because let's be honest here. We're all researchers, right? We all want to get the right information. We all want to see evidence. But if someone's going to send me a photograph of a tree or a stump and it's just there, I'm not going to believe it. Because I'm not seeing a dogman. I'm just seeing what I can normally see when I go walking into the forest or on a trail. There is a big difference, though. What is your take on different types of dogmen? Do you think that they're like people and that we all look different, or actually different types? Well, as of right now, depending on how many people believe it, there are 7 different types of dogmen. You have the 3 type 3s, which are more in between primates like Sasquatch, and then they have canine attributes, whereas the canine variants are more canine-like and have more of the wolf attributes, or whatever you want to classify it as. So, I think there's more types out there with all different personalities. So, of course, that's something to me, in my opinion, would feel more along the lines of, well, I think there could be maybe 40, maybe 50 types, very similar to Squatch. But, again, a dogman could have a very bad day, like we do, and when we all have bad days, we all act very different, don't we? So, who knows? But I think that they are like people in their own sense of how they do business. They all look different and have different types. Some could even have a disability. I'm convinced if animals can have some disabilities, why not dogmen? What are your thoughts on dogmen and pareidolia? For instance, seeing the face of dogmen in trees. I just answered your question, Damien. Hopefully you're still here for it. Hopefully I answered it best as possible. If a chimp can rip off a woman's face, what could a Sasquatch do? Probably the same thing, if not worse. What are your thoughts on Dogman and Paradise? Again, I just answered your question, Damien, so hopefully you got the question. Why do you think so many reports of Dogman going from 4 legs to 2 legs report the loud popping noises? Almost sounds like they could be advanced robotics. You got to remember something, too. These creatures are very muscular. So when someone who has a lot of muscle on them, they pop joints, or when they crack, it's almost the same thing. But also, too, these creatures got muscle to the teeth. I mean, it looks like they take steroids, for God's sakes. I mean, it's one of those cases where most likely there is this huge animal that has the ability, the size of 3 bodybuilders, and pops their joints. And just like that, I mean, they are strong. They are very strong. If a Bigfoot can break down a tree, a Dogman can do the same thing, if not worse. Wouldn't surprise me if it could break down an oak tree. Or, excuse me, lift over 500 pounds. I liked your howl. Thank you, Scarborough Squatch. The one I heard during my daylight encounter was the loudest howl I ever heard. Yes, 2 other people witnessed the howl, which scared the bejesus out of all of us. I'll tell you one thing right now. If I ever heard a Dogman howl, and you could pick up on the difference between a regular wolf howl, a coyote howl, a dog howl, but a Dogman howl, God, such a very terrifying experience. Vengeful Turkey goes, I've heard been the moors once I saw a sheep's head torn in half. Oh, Jesus. Its jaw was separated from the top half of its head, and its body was mangled. Yeah, that's a large predator right there doing damage, Turkey. Very large predator. Are there dogmen as far down south as Texas? There was a guy here, Ivan, who mentioned about North Texas, where he was from. And if you are interested, I will put out a map. The Cloaked Hedgehog map, one of the best, that will give you a providing on that. Are there... I just said South Texas, so there's most likely a North Texas. South Texas, big time. But yes. Scarborough and everyone else out there, listen, I just want to throw this out here. I'm reading everyone's comments one by one. I'm not ignoring anybody's comments or questions. I'm just going down the list as we go along, because so many are contributing, and I'm just trying to get everyone's question as best as possible. So I'm not ignoring you, and if you do feel like that way, I do apologize, but that's not the case. Are any Dogman sightings in California? Yes. Again, like North Texas and South Texas, I will throw out a map discussing that. I also want to talk a little bit about each state, by the way, if you guys are down for a stream for that. Anyone know about the Dogman seen by the locals in London, Ontario, Canada? It's in some park. Are you talking about the Chutes, Vicus? Because that's the most popular one, I think, in Quebec, or Ontario, so to speak. Around the same time as the night of the portal sighting, I had a neighbor 3 doors up saw it on her front porch going through her trash. So I wasn't the only one that had seen it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It does sound pretty interesting. I'll have to look into that. Unknown, if you want to send me an email at venomousfringe@gmail.com, I'd love to hear more about that. A link, or in general, if you guys want to send me an email, it is in the description. Feel free to take a look and send me of course, a email if you wish. Do you believe dogmen are humans that turn into a human and dog hybrid? Is that even your idea of a werewolf, or does Hollywood have it completely wrong? Well, Bo, Linda Godfrey, I think, says it best about you don't want to compare these creatures to that of the typical Hollywood werewolf movie, because, again, when we think of werewolves, we think of these creatures that turn man to werewolf on the night of a full moon. These creatures are seen in the daytime and seen during a regular night. Not a full moon night, a regular night. And the thing is that if that were the case, then I would feel that's a skinwalker, not a werewolf, so to speak, dogman, if that's where you're kind of coming from with that, Bo. If Dogman can't be killed with military weapons, then how do you explain Dogman encounters episode 66? Well, the thing is that, again, is that I'm not saying that weapons can't kill these creatures. They can. And I do believe episode 66, for the sake being, is that when you have experienced hunters out there trying to do this, you got to remember something. These things have the abilities to kill. They could do damage if they wanted to. Self-defense, I highly encourage with these creatures. I'm not saying that, like, you could fire as much rounds as you could into them. It's just a matter of if they'll take the bullets or if they'll just say, screw it. Some dogmen back off. But they can be killed. The infamous quote from the Predator, if it bleeds, we can kill it. But it would take a lot more than a few rounds, in my opinion. Jar Pickles. That's exactly why I'm bringing him. There is no higher level of security than having a pet apex predator by your side, plus wolves are totally bad. I agree. 100% Jar. I love wolves. There's a wolf sanctuary by where I live, and I'm actually planning to go there in the spring and visit it. Wolves are very beautiful animals. Just throwing it out there. I do not believe the Jody Cook military story, the same story spread over to Linda Godfrey. I believe that's what he had told me. I got to go back to the interview when I had spoken to him, and I did another interview with him a while back, I think about 2 years ago, with the same context of it. But yeah, the military, it's a very complex story. I'm skeptical of it for the sake being is that it just sounds a little highly unlikely that this would happen the way it plays out. But again, I could also be wrong, and I could be overthinking it. I'm not trying to. That's not my purpose here. Trust your gut. Mine has saved me on multiple occasions, indeed. Watch out for disinformation agents. Well, again, another reason why I wanted to touch base on the whole conspiracy behind Dogman. I don't know if anybody who has paid attention a lot to, Vic's show or Dee's show, but there's apparently former operatives or people who were in the government branch who are telling stories now. I have two problems with that. The first one being is that I find that very ballsy. That's the only word I can use to describe, to have people who used to work for our government, or at least in the U.S., for those who are international, that are telling these stories now. Why would they be saying something now? What's the motive behind that? It's a little sketchy, don't you think? But agents, whether they're here to talk about it, to get the public going, and coming on these shows to talk about them, I have an open invitation to any military operative who's listening to this show right now, who wants to go on my show and want to hear me out, want to hear you out. But I'm going to let you know now, I am a no BS person. I tell it how it is. Do not come on my show to hoax me or to start up a problem or to make it sound like we're all crazy. Just throwing it out there. What's the worst encounter you heard about Dogman? Well, if you count the hoax story I was given last week, that's one. The worst encounter? Are you asking what's the the ridiculous encounter I've ever heard, or the one that was terrifying? If you're asking for the worst one, and if it was in the terms of terrifying, definitely Stedman's. Daniel Stedman, episode 83. The fact that you have a creature that literally is trying to open up a door and trying to get into this car, whether to attack these two individuals behind or whatever, is a very terrifying situation. I would be very terrified of that. Extremely terrified. Brian goes, one thing that I find fascinating about wolves were pushed to the brink but bounced back faster than anyone expected it. And it seems that with the rise of Dogmen as kind of went hand in hand. Wolves, there's this belief that they run in packs, in which I believe so. I mean, there was a case involving a guy who had encountered 5 creatures that were like dogs. And in my opinion, I feel that they're kind of a bit of both. They're swerving in. I feel that they do have a communication grid. I mean, dogmen have reported to kill domesticated dogs. So, like I said, I guess in their genes and their family of canines, they have killed their own just like humans have killed humans. I am a firm believer. How can I convert my girlfriend, which is on the fence? Okay. Well, Josh, let me ask you this. Does your girlfriend, by any chance, believe anything like UFOs or Dogman or Sasquatch? I mean, well, first of all, you're asking me in general. Don't ask the second part of the question. But does she believe in the unknown? Does she have a firm belief in paranormal or cryptozoology? If she doesn't, you're going to have a hard time trying to convince her. If I were you, just like I do with my family and friends that I know personally, and of course people that are not in the firm belief of understanding that I know, keep it private. I wouldn't even convince her. I would just leave it at that. If she doesn't believe in any of that stuff, then, I would not encourage that. Honestly. Stacy, thanks for the kind words. I really am trying to go through all these comments as best as possible. So, thank you again. Thank you. My girl is not a believer. How do I convince her I need advice? I mean, Josh, again, respond to my question. If she isn't a believer in a lot of this stuff, you're going to have a hard time trying to convince her in general. I would just keep it hidden. I hate to say it like that, but I would just keep it hidden. For a few reasons. One, if you were to tell your family and friends about this stuff, they're going to think you're crazy. Okay? I've spoken to people in the groups I moderate that have said to me that my family thinks I'm insane because I believe in these things. Convincing your girlfriend about these things is going to take a lot. If you want to do this, you're going to need a lot of proof. I mean, how does she react? Number two, it's hard to really talk about these things because people don't believe in them because there's very little evidence, which is very true. However, the thing is, to me, in my opinion, that's something that would stand out the most incredible. I was trying to find the right words for it, but yeah, it's hard to convince people that these things exist, especially if they are brought up on the system of non-believing system where they will only listen to news. But if you're a believer, you'll listen to everything, not just news. That doesn't go for fake news or verified genuine news. Let's be civil about this. But Josh, if you want, you could send me an email and I can give you the best tips, best describe it, and help you out best as possible. But if she isn't a big believer, it might be tough. Because I have a girlfriend of my own, and she enjoys supernatural and conspiracies, but I haven't talked to her about Dogman yet. I don't know if I will. And it's hard to even showcase sites and whatnot because of that sake being. Because, again, it's hard to convince someone unless they've seen one. Yes, I live it. Okay. I know it's not exactly what you're thinking, but how do you touch on giants and Nephilim? Well, I think Nephilim and giants, that's ancient history, in my opinion. I don't think that would stick relatively towards the current topics of today. However, the big problem here is that people don't believe that they're Nephilim, like myself, and other people don't believe that these are supernatural creatures, that they are flesh and blood, which I also believe. So it's hard to convince people when it comes to giants and Nephilim. I mean, maybe they could be descendants, but like us, when it comes to Homo sapiens and Neanderthals and evolution, missing link and whatever, it's a tough topic. But Bo, I really like your mindset on it, but I don't think these are related in whatever course blue possible could be. If a government employee went public with a Dogman or anything in relation, they would be smeared by the government to discredit them. Absolutely. That's why I have a tough time when it comes to the conspiracy. That these things are here necessarily to, so to speak, if a government official wanted to come on my show and talk about these things, I could also be in a bit of danger because then I'd have government officials knocking on my door. They may not know where I live. They could easily find me. I'm not dumb. They could probably be listening to this show now. And if you are, well, hello. Mr. Extremes channel. I will check out. Extremes is pretty interesting. I'll take a look at a comic. There's a lot of... You should network. Yeah, there is a lot of information to cover. It's the matter of getting that information out there that's genuine, though. Anyone from Ontario? Anyone here from Ontario? There's a lot of great places to make contact. Open contact. How so, Damien? I would love to hear your views on that. But yeah, going back to the discussion, I think I actually just got done answering everyone's questions. That's not bad after nearly 30 minutes of doing it. I did pretty good there. But yeah, I just want to throw this out there, like the conspiracy behind Dogman, and the fact is that you have all these government officials popping up on these shows now talking about them. That makes me think that there's a bit of a covering connection there, and that there's a big spiral with it. Whether the spiral of it is to try to get the public out there to stick to the domain, and more importantly, to feed the agenda. Ever heard of anything going in Long Island, New York? I don't see how they could survive. Well, Long Island's a very interesting place. I'm actually right above you. Actually, yeah, I'm right below you. Where I live. So, Long Island, though, beautiful. So yeah, I think they couldn't survive. I mean, these creatures are very smart. They know the shortcuts. They've migrated before. Migration is as popular as it is now with these creatures. So very much so, yeah. I've never heard of much reports. There was as close as maybe 50 miles from Detroit. But other than that though, I mean, not much. Very much so, not much. Coming from Long Island. But I will throw everyone out a map. Cloaked Hedgehog's map that will probably give you a better idea on where the sighting logs are for these things. And if we play our cards right here, this will be very beneficial for not just people who are intrigued by these things, but enthusiasts. I had an experience up north where I was walking alone through foothills and started having UFO sightings, Dogman pareidolia, and strangeness occurring all throughout the night. Well, let me ask you this, Damien. Have you ever ran into one of a Dogman, so to speak, and have you seen it? There's a difference between pareidolia and seeing one. Pareidolia is the case of you wanting to see one, but there's nothing there. You're imagining things, and that to me would be a sight of, okay, well, I think there's something there, but there really isn't. I've done that before multiple times in the woods, so don't feel too bad. I would love to hear more about your UFO cases, though, Damien. I would love to hear more about UFOs. There's a reason I created all my accounts anonymously. The only thing that would give me away is that I used my old radio number as part of my name. Well, in situations like this where it's really not public, then you really got to keep a golden eye on things, you know? You got to keep a golden hidden analysis. Like the Venomous Fringe, no one knows who I am except for my first name. How do you know that's not even my real name? Okay? So you got to think of it like that. But I always try to keep an anonymous background on it. I mean, no one knows who I really am, what my real name is, what everything like that is. So that's the way I see it. And it's the best way to keep it on the hidden books. My voice could be very recognizable to some, but who's to know if I'm even that? This is not a voice changer. It works both ways now, doesn't it? I had something run behind me while meditating on the dirt path. Footsteps heard and felt behind me. Interesting, Damien. Damien, would you be interested in doing a show, coming on the show, Damien, and discussing your stories? Because I would love to hear more from your UFO cases to what you have seen regarding of Dogman. You know what I mean? I would love to hear more about that, actually, because it's very fascinating. Great show and everything is cool. We are a long-time subs and can't wait for the newer subs to have a turn. Scarborough, thank you for your kind words. Again, this show, I always try to put out information. I always try to talk my opinion and, you know, go from over there. So yeah, thank you again. As always, for all my subscribers and everyone who's been longtime listeners who may not have been subscribed but like to listen in, thank you for your support. Very much so. You guys are great. You know, I always try to call myself the Fringe and not Vic number 2 or D number 2 because they've already been they've done before. Often imitated but not duplicated, as I say. With a name like Venomous, you must be named Eddie Brock. Trust me, if symbiotes were real, I would definitely bond with one. That's not a joke either. I'm very serious. It's definitely up to you, Damien. I'm not forcing you to come on my show. It's totally up to you. I would just love to hear your views and your claims because, again, it's very interesting content. It really is. UFOs have always fascinated me. So, forsaken, of course. Stacy goes, enjoyed listening. It's the first time I've caught it from the beginning. Hey, thank you, Stacy. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you're enjoying this stream. We're already about an hour and a half in. Holy Moses. You think the portal might have released Dogman from another dimension or maybe even hell? Well, again, that's the basis theory of them if they are an interdimension creature or a supernatural, unnatural creature. If that is true, then yeah. The portal might have released them. There might be another dimension that have put them here for a purpose. But that purpose being, well, I don't know. No one knows. It's a good question. I could definitely go into some theories about it. Thank you, Stacy. I'm glad that you're liking the show. And Wicked, hit the like button as always, guys. If you guys wish to, go right ahead. Likes and subscribers are not my big thing. Again, I mean, I can get 10K subs and I can get so many subscribers, but I mean, it's not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this to put out data. I'm here to talk about what Dogmen are, the theories behind them. I'm not here to make a buck off of this stuff. I don't have a membership with YouTube because of the demonetization going on, but that's why there's a PayPal. But again, I'm not forcing no one to contribute. I'm not forcing anybody to, listen, you like my content, you subscribe, then go for it. But guys, I'm here to process and give you guys data. That's the main purpose of this show. That's not just saying that to make myself sound nice. I'm just being honest. Straight up. I mean, honesty is key. Casually, all right, I'd love to hear your experience. Definitely send me an email. Email is in the description, venomousfringe@gmail.com. Good night, Thin Blue. Thank you as always for listening to the show. Has anyone ever heard of a researcher named Kwame Lasperzitis? I'm terrible at pronunciation, so bear with me. He suggests that the Dogmen are guardians of portals and often seen around them. If that's the case, I would love to see proof on that. Again, the only way I will be convinced that these are unnatural creatures that come through portals is if I see proof. If I don't see evidence, then I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. What are your thoughts on the ancient astronauts? Do you think that our ancestors had contact with aliens? I believe, now let's be honest here. I am going to be extremely honest. I believe that there is a connection between us and UFOs and aliens. That's why there's a big cover-up with them. That's why the government is very, for the lack of a better term, very black-boxed with cover-upping with between Dogmen, aliens, and all that other stuff. But, again, you got a case here where you have two different parties between the government and the people. Government having, obviously knowing more than what we know, and that's a thing with me where if there was contact, you got the astronauts who were on the Apollo mission who had some very mysterious encounters, even on the moon. So, it's possible. Kill or no kill? Well, Shable, I'm going to give you my honest opinion on both of them. I am no kill. However, if I was being charged at by one and I had no choice, I would have to do whatever it takes to protect myself. If I'm with somebody, I'm going to protect her, him, or even in general myself. You know, this is a creature I do not want to put them into a situation with. But to injure one, most likely. I've never heard of any dead ones, so maybe impossible. Well, there are a few stories of them being reportedly getting killed. However, it's your belief. If you don't believe it, it's totally okay. It's your opinion. My brother said a dogman chased down a deer and killed it in seconds. Well, that's definitely most likely genuine, because these creatures do kill deer. These are not your typical deer killers. They brutalize deer. Have you seen any photographs of them murdering deer? It is completely frightening. It's scary. But to answer your question, no, Shable, I am a no-kill. However, again, self-defense. Self-defense is the most important thing. I would do whatever it takes to protect me or anyone I'm with. You know, you guys are mentioning a situation with Vic. Apparently, there was 2 encounters on the Long Island show. Again, one of the things I've learned when it comes to these type of discussions is that these episodes are uploaded involving encounters from different areas. But, again, it's up to us, I believe, to know if it's fake or genuine. Long Island is too busy, though. I've been there. It is extremely busy. So I highly doubt they are in Long Island. And if they are, I would love to know where their hiding spots are, because it's great. The lifespan of a dogman, that differs. That could be maybe from the ages of 1, maybe to... Because they might live the lifespan like Sasquatch and like humans. They could live up to maybe 90 years old. Who knows? We don't know for sure. We don't know the full story. We only just know what we can obviously get a grip for and what we kind of get the understanding of. If they are, though, if their lifespan for them is at least 60, or just taking a wild guess, maybe even 80, then that's pretty interesting. But they do age. There obviously are the cases where they, elder dogmen, there's seen some with gray, they mature, but I could be very wrong, and I don't want to give out misinformed information. That's just my analysis on it. My dad went out, ate in the field the day after, and there was nothing but blood. He said it must have taken the whole body. That most likely is the case. There's also cases where deer have been found brutally mutilated, mangled, and tangled all over their bodies. And it's a very frightening scenario. Okay? I mean, it is a very frightening scenario. But, again, who knows for sure how they, because... Has there ever been a case where there have been people who have seen them brutalize a deer, like, straight into the midst, like, no joke, ripped him to shreds, tore him apart, and gone from there? Besides your case, Michael. Because it is an interesting thing to think about. My dad went... Okay, I just read that. No idea. Don't even know about Sasquatch unless you believe in the big-named fox. Interesting, Shable. But that's just my opinion on the lifespan, because I think that these creatures can live long. Maybe not the lifespan of a wolf and a dog. Maybe they have more of an advanced lifespan, but I also could be very wrong. Maybe it could be 20 to 23 years. Most likely. I mean, there's plenty of theories behind it, but I guess it's just a matter of what would be most appropriate. So with that being said... Hello. I guess my audio was, my microphone shut off for a second, so just making sure everyone heard me. I was typing something out, and that happened, unfortunately. But, yeah, guys, I mean, look, the lifespan of a dog, man, it is something very interesting. I mean, If they live up to that of a wolf and dog, then we already have our answer. A typical dog lives what? 15, 20 years, maybe? Depending on the breed. A wolf most likely do the same thing. So, yeah, guys, I mean, again, this is something that, to me, it's a very interesting question. But at the same time, it also stands out to me because they are just strange. Very strange. But still a very interesting case. He said it had a very long hair on its back, about 6 inches. Ooh, yeah, that is very long. Jeez. And he said it had red eyes. I don't know if that means anything. Well, if anyone thinks, okay, I'm just going to throw this out here. If people think that because they have red eyes, they think they're demons, please do not tell me, because you're wrong. A cat can have red eyes. A domesticated dog can have red eyes, and for God's sakes, deer can have red eyes. That doesn't mean they're demons. Because if that was the case, then I guess a cat would kill me. Some friends of mine have said that they know that I was riding late at one night with some friends about 1 a.m. and a wolf-like creature jumped out in front of their car running on its hind legs. Unknown, do you have any more information on that story? Send me an email. I'd love to hear anyone who has any stories. If you guys have any stories or encounters you'd like to share with me, or if you want to go on the show, my email is in the description. Check it out. Send me an email and I'll get back to you as fast as possible. That is AFAP. Or as soon as possible, whichever one you prefer. Do you think people who have a strong connection to animals will see them more than other people? Well, define animal connections, like more along the lines of canines, more along the lines of the feline breeds, or just in general animal breeds. Because if that's the case, then most likely, Lisa Lycan, who was on my show, had mentioned to me about how there's things with bloodlines. However, it just gets to that point, I guess you could say, where there is a barrier between how many people who have connections like the Dr. Dolittle effect would be as strong and genuine, so to speak. Hello, Haley. No worries. You're not that late. I mean, it's only an hour and a half going on to 2 hours, so welcome to the stream. He said its eyes were basically glowing. He said that he could see it over 100 feet away. It was a very bright moon that night, and the eyes were glowing. Well, I mean, that's illumination for you. And on top of that, if it was that bad, I'm sure he would have been dinner besides that. This got too popular. Everyone and their grandma wants a Dogman story. Okay, and your point? Cats are demons. Was stroking one once it rolled onto its belly, then bit my finger. Yep. Well, not all cats are demons. I have a couple of my own, and they're very cuddly. I guess maybe my cats are just precious. Love your channel. My nighttime listening. Well, hello, Yvette. Thank you for tuning into the Venomous Fringe, as always. Thank you. I'm glad to have you guys here and listening to me babble. But we do have a lot of exciting things coming up for the Venomous Fringe. I want to talk about Dogman states. I want to talk about separate states with Dogman activity, old and new encounters. I also want to get more guests on the show. And more importantly, do these live streams of my monologues like this one right now. So guys, thank you for your support. Thank you for all that listen in. I've said it in the beginning. I'm going to say it again. I am not doing a YouTube partnership because of the demonetization that's been going on for all cryptid-related content channels. And also, in my opinion, I feel that putting ads every 5 seconds is just completely ludicrous. But we have a PayPal. And if you would like to donate to the PayPal, even if it's $1, to help support the show and to help keep our audio and equipment in sync, and more importantly, for whatever the case may be. If you're ever interested, guys, PayPal is in the description. But if you guys want to send me an email, which I'm more important to hear about, and whether you have an encounter or want to come on the show, venomousfringe@gmail.com. However, again, totally up to you guys. This is not a show for commercial advertising. This is a show for data and research and to get to the bottom of the Dogman and other unknown phenomenon in the world. You should do specials on other paranormal subjects. Well, you know what, Ethan? I'm not even going to finish what you said because I also want to throw that out to you guys. Would you guys be interested in me touching base with other creatures? Bigfoot, paranormal, Dogman. Well, no, Dogman. He's already had his fair share of discussion, but would you talk about it? Mothman or vampires. Would you guys be interested in that type of content? Let me know what you guys think, because I might even do that. I live in Texas. Are there a lot of reports from Texas? Absolutely, Haley. Haley, there's plenty of reports in Texas. As a matter of fact, I can throw you guys out a map for everyone who's in Texas. Very interesting reports. Fox was the name of the family. Oh, thank you, Vikas. Chris, you are a paragon of virtue. Thank you for the kind words. Fox. Let me just go back. Fox was the name of the family to a Sasquatch that befriended them and lived 50 years around them. Scott Carpenter has breakdown vids of them. Yes, Scott Carpenter, one of the best. Big shout out to Scott Carpenter. I saw one at 2 a.m. in West Point on Highway 33, getting on I-64 Interstate of Virginia. I was a truck driver. It was eating deer on the road. Lloyd, that's very popular. These creatures are very popular with killing roadkill and always on the side of the road. One of the earlier reports of the Beast of Bray Road reported a waitress or a bartender who had seen one of these creatures at 2 a.m. eating on the side of the road. Very popular, indeed. You are way more interesting than the State of the Union. Oh, man. How I do not follow politics. But thank you. I want to hear about the Tahu Tessie, then bring on the crypt. Sure thing. Very good. Skinwalkers would be interested. They are very interesting. I would love to discuss more skinwalkers. Absolutely, other subjects would be great. Cryptids, indeed, casually. Where did you get that howl when you get a subscriber? Ethan, to answer your question, I got that howl from a royalty-free website. You can even find it on YouTube if you type up royalty-free wolf howl. You could probably find it. I forgot which one, though, but it's a very nice howl, ain't it? I wouldn't mind, but I am obsessed with Dogman. I'm obsessed with Dogman, too. Some people think I'm nuts for talking about Dogman too much, but honestly, I love Dogman. Dogman is a great topic, okay? Let's be fair here. If it wasn't for Vic Cundiff, if it wasn't for Linda Godfrey, if it wasn't for Jody Cook or D. Doss, I probably wouldn't be doing this type of stuff. Yes, primarily I would like to see people who have had rake encounters. That thing scares me more. Oh, the rake is a very terrifying creature. Rake is freaky, period. Once I get some rake encounters or people who or old history books on rakes, then I will touch base on them. Bo, if you're referring to the lizard man, yes, lizard people, or in general, lizard people. Some people have said that they're more supernatural, but I think it'd be more cryptid. If it has that humanoid or whatever appearance, so to speak. I live close to LBL. LBL is a very big resort. I actually mentioned LBL just now. I would love to hear what you think about vampires, Wendigo, and skinwalkers. I'll do an episode on that. I would love to. Mothman creep me out. My grandfather, actually, here's an interesting story about the Mothman. Not to touch base and get off subject of the title of the video and what we're talking about. My grandfather touched base with a guy who had seen the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia back in '67, right around the time of the sightings. I think it was actually around the time of the sightings, actually. And it was very terrifying. So, I mean, Mothman is a very hot topic. I mean, right now we got Chicago and the theory behind it. Can you throw out a map from Michigan? I appreciate it, boss. Absolutely, Terry. I will throw out a map. As a matter of fact, guys, I will throw you guys a link to Cloaked Hedgehog's map. I'll put it in the comment, on the pinned comment, when this video upload is done streaming. And I will throw it out there for you guys. Isn't the rake just a creepypasta? It's funny, Bo, because I originally thought it was a creepypasta, but I guess people think it's not a creepypasta anymore, that the people have had these encounters with one. I've never seen one. I don't want to, but if it is indeed true, I would love to know. I had a dream about the rake during a dark time in my life and said the dream scared me for life. Whenever I think about the rake, I can't sleep that night since I've gotten over it, though. Well, good, Jar. I'm glad that you've been able to overcome your fear of the rake and everything in relation to it. Again, another case of where if people are seeing a creature like a rake and it's becoming more of life imitating art, but now it's evolved, I mean, seriously, then, yeah, rake is a very hot topic. I heard the story of rake versus the Dogman on D's show. Nothing against it, but, I mean, still, genuine. How genuine is it? So, again, I'm a psychic and help people with paranormal issues, among other things. Hearing about people's paranormal problems would be awesome. Absolutely. Paranormal encounters are very interesting, okay? They read off very mysterious, anomaly, and very frightening situations, especially if you're dealing with demons. I would never want to mess with a demon. I never want to touch a demon. Never want to, do with anything with a demon. That's a death wish. Have you heard any reports in Rhode Island? Yes, actually, I have. Again, I will throw out a map that will showcase all the reports, and we will talk about them. Which makes me want to ask you guys, with all these reports of Dogman in the U.S. and all over the world, what is one state you want me to touch base on? What's the state that you think would be a great starter to my discussion on Dogman encounters in the States? What would be the one that you would love to hear about most? Would it be Wisconsin? Would it be Michigan? Would it be Texas, Pennsylvania, Virginia, maybe even New York? What would be a state you guys would want to hear about that you would be fascinated in listening in? I get a lot of shadow people encounters. I'm sensitive to the paranormal. Interesting. Vengeful. Very interesting. Stacy says Oregon, Illinois, Washington State, Pennsylvania, or the Beast of Bray Road. That was Wisconsin, casually. Venomous, I just sent you some mangled deer pics. Perfect. I'll take a look at them. I'll send you a response as fast as possible. That's very interesting, though. I love to see these type of things. These mangled deer pics always return. Would it be with your permission to share them as slides, if that's okay with you? Because I'm very curious to see how mangled these things are, or even share them in my research group, if that's okay with you. Let me know. I rebuke any demons. I think we all do. They are one of the worst entities out there. I have personally experienced them, and I would wish a visit from them on my worst enemy. It was really bad. I think he meant to say I wouldn't wish one on them from my worst enemy. Let me know what you think. I will definitely take a look at them always. I'll send you a reply once I'm finished with the stream. New York, could these be tulpa? I don't know why, Bo. I have no idea why. I thought at first you said, could these be tilapia? But I'm just going to go ahead and continue what I originally was going to say and say, could these be tulpas, like the human mind giving life to something? I mean, I've ever heard of sightings of Dogmen, the Rake, Shadow People, Slenderman, maybe even Jason Voorhees. Yeah, Jason Voorhees is quite an icon in up north in Jersey with the Camp Crystal Lake. He's a good icon. I've given him a high five before. It's very interesting. If you don't go out there searching for SCX, I think you'll be okay. I even blacked out once and was told I was just staring at a wall and mumbling to myself. That's very interesting, Vengeful. Vengeful, would you like to come on the show and discuss some of your cases? It doesn't have to be Dogman. We'll talk about paranormal and very terrifying encounters. I mean, again, I give an open invitation to anybody who watches the show, but I'm not here to necessarily say force you on. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. It's just an offer. Or if you even want to go by an anonymous name besides the Vengeful Turkey. First of all, I think the Vengeful Turkey is a great name, by the way. It's clever. The Vengeful Turkey. Is that why I get so pissed off at Thanksgiving? Michigan. I've come across the bridge in Point Pleasant lots of times, going home to North Carolina, taking a shortcut Ohio. Plus, I've crossed a lot of driving truck, and I did not know that that's where the Mothman was. Yeah, tell you what, Terry. Mothman, that's his residence right there. The bunkers of the TNT area. Oh, my God, forget it. I'm actually going to be visiting there soon. I have a guy around the area who's offered to have me go out there with him, and I'm definitely going to take a look at it. Maybe if I get good signal, I can live stream it. What's spotted a little nervous nowadays? Indeed. Louisiana, if we have any. Oh, they're in Louisiana, Melanie. Have you ever heard of the video about the Dogman versus a rig? Yes, I heard that from Dee's show. Very interesting encounter. Depending on how the genuine of it is, then we will find out for sure, but very interesting. Heard Missouri is a migration route. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'd love to talk about Missouri as well. Japan. I don't know. I really don't know. Let me look into that, Bo. Definitely. Well, Vengeful, if you have anxiety, I'm not going to force you to do the show. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I don't want you to panic or anything. It's just an offer. But if you even want to send me your stuff through email, it's perfectly okay. Perfectly healthy. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable on my show if they have a hard time discussing their stories. That's not the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is to give out data, and even if it's told through me through email. What's your opinion on Taylor, Mississippi with Dogman? Are you referring to the Lockett Ranch story? Because I don't believe the Lockett Ranch story. For the sake being is because it's too much that of a novel. So that's the only reason why I don't buy into it. And plus the fact being is just I feel it's made up. Just for views. Sorry if you're a fan of Dark Waters. Nothing against the guy, but I mean still. Looking for genuine here. But I do believe that they are in Taylor, Mississippi, though. If that answers your question. For the sake being is that Mississippi has a lot of flatlands, a lot of wetland it could easily migrate through into. So, of course. LBL apparently has accounts of people who are working and running motels as being very bizarre and dangerous on the verge of supernatural. Again, this is what I've heard. Yes. Yes, Vicus, you're right, because that's actually one of the top dog places for Vampire Hotel, the Hotel California. Absolutely. When you want to email, send me a time. Savannah, you sent me your email address. I'm actually not going to post it out there, but I will take a look at your email, and I will say something later. Again, though, if you want, I'm going to post it on the pinned comment of a map of all the encounters that the Cloaked Hedgehog has as an easier way to have everyone take a look at their separate states and all over the world. Have you looked into the Skinwalker Ranch? Yes, I have. I would love to talk about the Skinwalker Ranch. I would love to actually take a look at the place, too, by the way. Have you heard of the cryptid researcher named J.C. Johnson? Yes. J.C., God rest his soul. One of the greatest researchers, was a great researcher. J.C. was a pioneer in both the Sasquatch and Dogman community, and he's deeply missed. Gotta go now, but love your channel, and yes, please do more shows about cryptids. Yes, there is a connection. The big connection. Thank you, Shable, for watching the show, as always. Ever heard of the Lake Michigan Triangle? No, actually. I've heard of the triangle. Well, let me rephrase it. I have, but I never really looked into it. I will post the map when I finish the stream, guys, just so you guys know. Is the Dogman more elusive than Sasquatch? I think so. I feel that Dogmen are more aggressive, and they have more of a capability of destruction versus a Sasquatch. Thank you, and great show. Absolutely, Savannah. Thanks for tuning in. J.C. Johnson, great researcher. Well, was a great researcher, and unfortunately, when we lost J.C., it was it was tough. You know, J.C. was a very great guy, and he'll be deeply missed. Deeply missed. I miss him. He was a great guy, and, you know, I spoke to him a few times. I didn't really know him, but very good guy. Has a great heart. Had a great heart. Thank you always. I always like looking at like mangled animal pics like that in the cryptid field because there is some sort of line drawn. And it's very scary at the same time. I totally believe in these cryptids, but do you ever wonder why crystal clear pics are never taken? Well, to tell you the truth, King Cal, there's a few reasons why. Number one, when we look at the government standpoint of it, they will remove evidence as clear as possible. That's happened in my groups before. Excuse me. I literally had a brief second to think. And then on top of that, there was this whole situation where when the government plays a factor in keeping away clear evidence, that they will do something. Don't know what that is, but again, that's just my 2 cents on it. Now, when you're dealing with evidence like that, don't know how genuine it is, never happened to me. I never had anything. But why there isn't crystal clear evidence? Well, there's also a respect grid with these things. Maybe people don't want to disrupt them, don't want to bother them. They don't want to expose them to the public like a respect barrier. But also because, let's be honest here, 8-foot creature you're staring at. Are you really going to pull out a camera? Are you going to really pull out, like a jar of pickles just mentioned, are you really going to pull out a camera? You're going to be scared. It's not a good idea. Unless you have, steel balls. But, I mean, who knows? I think it has to do with... Yeah, exactly, Jar. That's just what I just said. A little bit off topic, but have you ever heard of the EE? No, I have not, Damien. I would love to hear more about it, though. You would be shaking, all right. You'd be terrified. I mean, let's be fair here. You got a giant creature staring at you. Are you really going to pull out your phone or a camera and say, I'm going to take a shot? No, you're not. You'd be terrified. I would. I'm a big guy. Question. I've heard dogmen running in a pack and being seen alone. So is there evidence of different breeds like coyotes to wolves? Any thoughts there? Yes. Red Envelope, to answer your question, yes. I believe so. Depending on the breach, though, however, and how you can classify them, who knows? Super shout out to you. What happens if you just can't move? Well, that would be a state of shock and panic, so I don't think it would be quite adjourned, so to speak. The Killindy, EE, or the Killy, from what I'm trying to get it pronounced as, Damien. I've never heard of it before, but I would love to hear more about it. Thanks for the shout out, Anth. Appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, guys, I mean, again, this is just my opinion on things. I'm not saying that this is fact. You can go with your gut. However, again, let's take serious research here. Let's not focus on the supernatural here. Because we don't even know for sure. We only know bits and pieces. But to focus on a data plan to get them out there to know what they are. That's what's important. Super shout out as always. Okay, I just read that. Can dogmen breed with wolves or dogs? There's most likely a possibility of that. However, the thing is that DNA is going to be a huge factor. But if dogs can breed with other animals, so to speak, and have a hybrid sorts, most likely with dogmen, they are of the canine branch. So my answer would be, why not? The Gable footage is one of the best films, and I'm still waiting for these non-believers to prove that they could be more like that animal in the film. Has there been any new information on the Gable incident? Well, the Gable film, if you remember, was reported to be a hoax. I'm 50-50 on it. I feel that even though, yes, there are people that can definitely mimic on planks walking on all fours, I think that there's more to the story than we know. I don't believe everything to be fact on reality television, but who is to say for sure? But the Gable incident in the last few years, or at least from my memory, no, there hasn't been anything new. Not that I know of, at least not to my recollection. Yeah, turkey. Turkey's not my favorite poultry. I'm not big with turkey, but I mean, no disrespect to the vengeful turkey, but yeah, turkeys. Waiting for Turkey Man. Bo, there is no such thing as a stupid question, but thank you for listening in. I hope that was very helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or tune into the next stream. Normally, I try to put out these streams every Friday evening, so folks, if you're interested, feel free to always tune in Friday evening. I'm going to put out a question later on about what would be the first state we want to touch base on in a discussion. That would be very interesting now, would it? I would love to talk about it all that, actually. Each state one by one. We could talk a lot about them. But no such thing as a stupid question, Bo. Thank you for listening as always, and I hope you have a great evening. As actually, too, I'm probably going to it's been 2 hours. Probably going to, in a little while, put an end to it. But, of course, serious question, though. Maybe stupid, but whatever, there is most likely to have an actual encounter. Where is the most likely to have an actual encounter? Well, if we're referring into area or environment, most likely the woods. Anywhere, national parks. If you're asking the best place to have an encounter, like state-wise, Michigan's always been my priority because the Traverse City all the way up to the Michigan Peninsula. Big activity over there. The Gable film, supposedly somebody came forward saying that he was in a ghillie suit. You're very much so right. However, I don't believe everything of it being out of a fact because, again, there's always a thing with stories being fabricated and cases being compromised. But who's to say? So, of course, again, I mean, that's just something that just off the tip of my head would... who would know for sure? Would you actually attempt to see one in person? Never. Because they are scary. Simple as that. All the stories I hear, scary. Germantown, Ohio, big place for Dogman. If you haven't heard Jody Cook's episode, you will know a lot about it. You'll know what I mean. Have you ever heard the latest possible Skinwalker scream caught on camera? Yes, Damien. If you go to my YouTube, I actually posted a video about it. So if you want to check it out, go right ahead. Very interesting scream. My wife thinks I'm nuts, but I really just want to see one for myself. If you do, you do, but I never encourage you to see one. They're very scary creatures. I would never put that on nobody, ever. Have you heard of the story where a mother killed a dogman and her 2 young daughters made their way to the neighbor's home down the hill? No, I have not, and that sounds very... it doesn't make sense. I'm not trying to discredit the story or you or anything like that, but I have a bit of red flags with that. A mother killing a dogman, then how is it that these people... How come we can't kill them instantly? You know what I mean? Enjoy listening to you and all the other questions. Thanks for the info. No problem, Melanie. No problem. Thank you for listening. As always, you have a great evening. People can breed them down so we can have a toy dog man. Well, I mean, if everyone wants that, you go right ahead. Land between the lakes area, Kentucky and Tennessee. Interesting stories and encounters over the last 30 to 40 years. Very interesting, actually. Very interesting. Very scary, too. But at the same time, who's to say? Who knows? But yeah, King, I mean, that's a story that I'm a little skeptical about because, again, if that was the case, then how come we aren't killing these things then? Why does it take a full clips, over 4 clips, to kill one then? It just doesn't make sense now, does it? But with that being said, folks, the Venomous Fringe, show dedicated to Dogman, paranormal, and other mysterious anomaly out in the world. A show that we have made dedicated to the most discussion of Dogman, very popular and common. Folks, I want to thank everyone who have come into this discussion, who have liked and tuned in. Folks, again, we are not a partnering YouTube channel, and if you guys would like to contribute to the show, feel free to send a PayPal, even if it's $1. But of course, again, even if you don't have to, even if it's $1, your $1 contribution to keep the show running and going, partnership-wise, we are ad-free. And if you guys want to come and submit me an encounter or come on the show or show me evidence, you can reach me at thevenomousfringe@gmail.com. I want to thank you all again for listening to the show. And as always, guys, be safe and have a fantastic evening.